Hey everyone, my name is Athanasios Bonas. I'm a researcher of ancient Hellenic athletics, and I'll be reviewing How to Lift Like the Ancient Greeks by SideQuest. Though you'd also know how to do so from the plans I upload on Patreon, but let's check it out.
The ancient Greeks are best known for their piercing ideas, not so much for pumping iron.
Are you sure about that?
Come on, man. Have you not seen the statues?
Yet for them, a sharp mind was nothing without a strong body, and indeed they rigorously developed both.
Correct.
Now, the first Greek gyms were little more than open areas beside a river, perhaps with a few shaded trees here and there.
Hey, where are you going? To the gym.
Down by the river!
More of a field than a gym. But hey, you've got to start somewhere.
Not sure where he got this from. He doesn't list any sources in the description. Not saying it's necessarily wrong, but as far as I know, the first gyms were in the outskirts of cities.
One notable difference compared to today is that the Greeks didn't have exercise machines or conveniently denominated weights.
They did have weights, the halteres, but there aren't enough surviving examples to know whether they had denominations based on weight. I'd wager they did.
I need another plate. Give it to me.
What's Arnold doing in ancient Greece?
Let me be the judge of that.
They just used whatever they had at hand, a simple stone or rock.
They did have gym equipment, my man, including weights.
Of course, weights weren't the only thing the Greeks were missing. There was also a noticeable lack of branded sportswear, or any sportswear at all, for that matter. The Greeks did all their training, yes, you guessed it, in the nude.
Evidence for this is insufficient. They were likely loinclothed wearing what is called a perizoma.
In fact, the word gym or gymnasium comes from the Greek word for naked, gymnos.
The word gymnos doesn't translate exactly to the English naked or nude. Someone that is not properly dressed is gymnos, as would they be if they were just wearing a loincloth.
It sort of makes sense. Originally, the ancient Greek gym was intended as a place to develop one's fighting skills. Things like wrestling, racing, and throwing things, which didn't exactly require fancy outfits.
It did require training in arms, which they also did.
Now, these first primitive gyms did evolve throughout the ancient era, and their development ran hand in hand with the rise of sporting events.
Sporting events did not only appear after the Dark Ages, they likely existed for hundreds of years before the establishment of the consistent Olympics of the 8th century. Did the Minoans or Mycenaeans have gyms? According to myth, they did, but proving that archaeologically is not easy.
Where Greek hulks could show off their skills. These athletes would also compete naked, but with the added touch of having oil rubbed all over them. Hey, you missed the spot. Supposedly, this would protect them from the sun.
Not supposedly. Surprising enough, it actually did. Olive oil has an SPF of around 8, which blocks close to 90% of UV rays.
But we all know who the oil was really meant for. And yes, married women were expressly verboten from attending these events.
The only source for this is Pausanias. What is more likely is that all women were forbidden from viewing the Olympics, but could spectate other Pan-Hellenic events.
In any case, these sporting festivals were big hits, sometimes drawing crowds of up to 50,000. The Olympics were by far the most famous such event, but there were 3 others as well, cycling every 4 years.
These are the Pan-Hellenic events, where people from all around Greece and even modern Italy and Asia Minor would attend, but there were also local sporting events like the Panathinaik Games, which were just for Athens.
The rewards, of course, were great. Well, actually, the winner only got a crown made of leaves. Hey, what do you call this?
For the Pan-Hellenics, correct, but local events had prizes. The Panathinaikes, for example, awarded amphorae of olive oil from the sacred trees of the academy, which could then be sold or offered to temples by the champion.
But that was only the symbolic prize. The winner would be showered with gifts by their hometown. Things like statues and political positions were on the table.
Though some athletes did turn to politicians far after their careers were over, like, for example, Dorievs of Rhodes. This was not the norm, nor can it be claimed that this was the motivation for victory. But yes, like today, name recognition would provide opportunities.
So, naturally, the athletes went to extremes in their training.
Going to extremes in training was generally frowned upon, from philosophers like Plato and Aristotle, who state exactly that, to doctors like Hippocrates and Galen.
One particular athlete, called Milo of Croton, found a calf and decided to carry it on his shoulders. In any case, he continued carrying it every day until the calf was a 4-year-old bull, at which point he slaughtered it and then ate it in one day.
There's a lot of myths surrounding Milon, and most are implausible.
Milo won the Grand Slam title of the Pan-Hellenic Games 5 times. This was an honor awarded only to those who managed to win all 4 festivals in the same cycle, and Milo did it 5 times. He was pretty much the greatest athlete in ancient Greece for over 20 years.
Milon was a wrestler, and there was another called Hipposthenes from Sparta who also won 5 consecutive Olympics in the 7th century, 6 if you count the boys' competitions similar to Milon.
Now, professional athletes like Milo bulked out by eating lots of meat.
Milon was said to eat a lot of meat, but this practice was criticized by the doctors of that era. Athletes of the time did have diverse diets, which again we know from Hippocrates' regimen.
And focusing on one skill exclusively.
Also, athletes often competed in multiple events.
But your average Greek followed a different approach. Most of the young men at the Greek gyms didn't want to overspecialize. After all, they were there to train as warriors and so needed to demonstrate not only strength but also speed and agility.
It would be difficult to argue that they trained to be better warriors, as they were provided mandatory state-backed training for that purpose. It's more likely that they went to the gym for similar reasons that we do today.
This meant that being only halfway decent in any one particular aspect wasn't an immediate career ender.
There was also a pentathlon for those that could excel in multiple sports.
Of course, some Greeks took this lenience to its extreme and didn't bother with anything. Hey, pour the wine! This drew the ire of many philosophers, including Socrates.
Socrates, well, really Plato, believed that everyone should exercise, regardless of whether they were athletes or not, because it brought balance to any other art or craft a person would do professionally. For the same reason, he believed that athletes should practice quote-unquote calm arts like music or painting.
But this begs the question, why was Socrates hanging about outside a gym? Well, the Greek gymnasiums were state-run institutions, and so among other things, they also became a hub for public life.
Correct.
The Greeks recognized the link between athletics, health, and education. So gyms eventually grew into centers of learning. They became complexes of magnificent buildings, with each city trying to outshine the next.
Cities would create gymnasiums based on their overall wealth, sure. But what evidence is there that they did it specifically to outshine other city-states? Sparta surely didn't care how frugal their gym was in comparison to Athens or any other city-state, for example.
Indeed, one of Socrates' students, Plato, founded his school at a gymnasium.
That is the academy, correct.
As did Plato's student Aristotle.
And that would be the Lyceum or Lycio.
The gym became a place to develop not only one's body, but also one's mind. And from that came the explosion of thought and philosophy the Greeks are now famous for.
Yeah, this is also why I feel it is necessary to upload videos on philosophy on this channel, despite the main subject being athletics and, of course, Pankration.
All because some men started lifting rocks in a field.
Down by the river!
So, you want to lift like the ancient Greeks? Well, don't forget to bring your philosophy books along with you. Oh, and you'd better not be allergic to oil if you want to make a career out of it.
Modern sunscreen will work just fine, but the principle of massaging the muscles prior to the workout with or without olive oil still stands. You can find this in the workout/nutritional plans based on the ancient Greek regimens that I upload, where you can actually save 25% on an annual subscription. Overall, the narrator has a great voice for the medium and the animations are charming. I just wish they could provide some sources in the description or as a response to comments. But in general terms, well done. If you have any other exercise or nutritional videos that you'd like me to review, Let me know in the comments. Catch you in the next video. Cheers.